Hi, this is the review of the last week in my Hobonichi. Do my weekly review. Usually what I'll do is I'm kind of thinking about what needs to be completed from the past week, meaning I will go through and start out with my last week. I'll take a look and see what's been going on in terms of what items have been checked off and what haven't. There are a few things that I haven't done, so little dots that haven't been completed. And I'm taking a look and seeing that I need to get those done. One of the things I thought about doing was using my mile liners to kind of go through and maybe checking off some of these items to see how I could color code them. Maybe it's something I can try. I do use these occasionally. I had switched over to the friction because I just like the colors themselves better. I don't really use them to erase. At first I was doing a little bit of erasing, but I think once I got a consistent color coding system, it wasn't such a big deal in terms of like making adjustments. Once I stuck to the colors, it looked pretty good. I just thought that these frictions look a little bit more chalky, a little bit, they're just a little bit cuter, so it's just a personal preference. I think with these mile liners, they also are kind of a little bit heavy on the paper. So like, say I want to color code this one for something that's related to a particular project, I could just go like this, and it looks okay on the other side. It's just not the kind of green that I like. When I take a look at these dots, I want to say that when I see them, I think I'm just going to leave them, because I think one of the things that can get you into trouble when you're doing a bullet journal is that you keep on migrating from one section to another. So either something needs to go from here onto your task list that's kept for me on this board. So you can see I have a task list that's here. I think what I'm going to do is get rid of the July and just list it as task list, and then that way I can keep it as a running list. And I could migrate something like this, like making sure my 5 terabyte drive is backed up to my Backblaze account. That could go here, but I think because it is important, I'm going to leave it here. And then I could do a couple of different things. I could asterisk, but it's not really still emergent or urgent type of item, so I'm not going to like upgrade what I need to do with that task. But I think I will leave it here with the plan that at the beginning of the week I'm always kind of going back and looking through. I'm definitely not going to rewrite this because that would just be craziness. And then I will take a look at these. These are items that I will just continue to leave here. I was thinking if I needed to, I could take something like a mild liner and then highlight them again, just so I know that something is left here, where I'm going to highlight things that I have done so that I know. So like, let's say this one. This was like a personal finance, but since it's personal, I'm just going to go ahead and then kind of highlight it very quickly. Anything else that was done that was a personal item? This one, oh, that was something that was definitely maybe something that I could remember. And you can see how bright that yellow is. To me, it's just a little bit jarring. I think it'll be okay when I'm flipping through a bunch of pages to be able to see something, and maybe that kind of highlight that's yellow versus like the highlight you can see that's here. It's more of a bright neon, and that I kind of like. This is semi-annoying. The only problem is now it's not exactly consistent with the yellow that I'm using here, so we'll see how this goes. I'm going to try it, and I think One Book July is that really great month where you can rethink and really try a few different things and see what's working out. Because I think the idea of the one book is that you stick with the one book, and then maybe you're just trying to optimize what you're doing within that system to make sure that it's working well for you. You're not trying to think, oh, maybe I just need another planner, and maybe I need to have rings, maybe if I could take pages in and out, maybe if I had an undated journal. So I stopped thinking about that part and really am focusing on the system. And I think someone had mentioned in a comment, and I really appreciate that you know, I asked a question about why am I using the friction highlighters, and I started to think I wasn't quite sure. I think what I'm going to do is a whole dedicated video for just all the possible ways you can color code things, because I think that'll be really useful. Like, I have my frictions, I have my highlighters, I even got some new sticky notes so I could add some. I have my juice up pens, and the juice up pens, I love those, but they just don't work well in here. They just leave a little too much of a dent in the paper and that. So if you're interested in having a video on color coding, let me know. Once I've kind of looked through the pages, so I'm not gonna have you go through all the pages with me. I'll look and say, oh, okay, here I didn't actually do a one line for yesterday, so I'm gonna do that Beekeeping 101 class again. I fill out that section. I'm going through and just kind of looking again at items to see what I need to do, and just in general I'm looking through the pages, kind of seeing what I like. I like doing some notes. I like having, you know, something that's kind of important. It may be listed here. I have a little bit of journaling related to like the earthquake that we had, and then I'll just put something simple. And then I'll do something here. I did a little bit more journaling. I have an empty section here, and I like having some empty sections. It meant that, you know, this was just a really busy day. I didn't have a lot of time to think about, you know, extra things to write down for notes. But as I'm reviewing, and I'll do that later tonight, some of the items here, or I'm kind of planning for the next week, there might be a project that I might kind of brainstorm here. I don't need to, you know, worry about empty space. I'm going to use it at some point, and if I don't use it, it's kind of nice to have a little empty area so that there's not as much going over on the back of this, so I can kind of see this a little bit better. You can see that they're shadowing, and especially because I used a lot of ink, which I don't worry about. This was a pretty big event, so I think that that's something that is served having a little bit of extra writing in it. One of the things I could have done was instead do my outline and then did a mild liner to kind of, you know, highlight this rather than using the ink from my fountain pen, because then it just bled through. It actually bled through all the way to the next page, but I don't know if you can tell here, even though it bled over, you can't tell once you start writing. And so there's a lot of bullet points like here. Looking still, all of this needs to be done. There are things that need to be done sooner rather than later, so I'm going to leave them here. I'm not going to transition them or transfer them over to the task list. I'm looking through this. That's looking good. And then this is today. So what I'm going to do is, in this morning, I'm going to kind of write my tasks to do. But because it's Sunday, one of the most important things that I do for Sunday is weekly review, which means for me, I go over and then I fill out my weekly page. So what I'm going to do, and just so you know, I did try to set up some project lists here, and I didn't like how it turned out. It just was a little bit too cramped. It looked a little bit too messy. It's a little bit difficult to see what I'm trying to prioritize. So I'm just not going to do that right now. I'm going to try to figure out a different plan. I'm going to move over my weekly, and I'll show you what I'm looking at, but on the side I have my computer, and it has my Outlook, which is what I use for my work to-dos, or actually for my work schedule. And then what I need to do is I figure out what I have for work, and then that way if there's anything that I need to keep in view, like say over here, that will be a priority project, and that's what I can block off time for, or even schedule some time for today so I'm prepared for this coming week. I will go ahead and then just start from the beginning. I will just go ahead, open circle is how I begin an event, and then I will go through and then I start putting in a few more items. If something overlaps a little bit, what I do is I just put it slightly over to the side. And then every once in a while, if I have something like I know I wanted to get some good pictures, have that I need to have my camera here, I'm thinking about that, so I can go over to my Monday and then put on here, you know, bring camera. So again, being as explicit as possible, so that I know why I'm going to do that. And then at the event that I need my camera, I'm going to actually list it here. So when I look at it and I'm getting ready to go, I know I need to bring that. Then there is something else here, which is listed out, looking off to the side to make sure that I know when these events are happening. And then once it dries, I will go ahead and then add a little bit of color coding so that I know that, you know, how much time is devoted to a particular area of my work, so that if I am not actually spending enough time on the high priority action items or high priority projects, I will go ahead and then add in some block time for that. And my block time, I'm trying to be better about really leaving that for as soon as I hit that time point. I make sure that if I find block time, so say I wanted to do something here, I'll actually list it and then I'll add it to my Outlook calendar, because I can look at this and this is what I like to do to plan my time, but I need to put something on my Outlook calendar. Otherwise someone's going to schedule something during that period and then everything gets all crazy at that point. And again, this is going to be a double booked event, so I'm going to put that here, and then I'm going to put the other one here, and then that way I know that there's two things that I need to do or be aware of. And then again, I'm just looking over to the side to make sure that I'm adding all of the events. I will go ahead and then say, okay, here is something that I need to set up an agenda and then send that out early on. So I have to decide. I think what I'm going to do is I have two options. I'm trying to be better about sending out agendas way ahead of time. So I actually am going to list this as a Monday activity. So I am going to do, and this is going to be something I must do, so I am going to give it an A1 for Monday because I know that I need to do it. Again, these are items, and A means they really have to be done on that day. So these are actually all A's. And then these go together. So when I do something where, in a sense, they all are at the same time, I actually will sometimes just put the same number because I need to make sure I do every single one of those. And then when I'm doing that, if I have other things that are related to that, so I actually need to think about, you know, what is on the agenda, because I can't send it out until what is on the agenda. And then the way that we work this out is we actually add or update the Outlook invite. So I have a task, but it has two nested things. And then, you know, if I didn't put it in order, I will go ahead and then just label it 1, 2, 3, 4 so that I know what to focus on. Because, you know, with any task that you're doing, the thing that's most important is figure out what's the next step. Because if you're trying to like think about, you know, what do I need to do, is, you know, that's just going to be another point of craziness of not knowing how to get started. And that's an easy way to get distracted. And then you've just been, you know, it's like a squirrel. You're like off to the next thing and you didn't even get done what you needed to. I'm going to go ahead and then do that. And then what I'm going to do is go back because I'm still working on here. So I figured an item, I need to have a task. And if you hear my dog drinking water, he's just a very good water drinker. And he appears to be very thirsty. So I'm going to put this here. And again, I have another overlapping one. So I'm going to, if I know what's overlapping, I can kind of write things so that things do not get confused. And I'm just going ahead and then writing out meeting, and then I have something here. So again, here I have something where there is an event, and actually people need to be invited to that event. So I'm going to go back over. That's, you know, it's not like the most important thing in the world, but it is nice to be able to tell people ahead of time. So I am going to go and say invite everyone. Alright, so then that works out. So now I have the task related to this one, and I am going ahead. I have an all-day event here, so I put that at the top. And I will go ahead and then put on a couple different things here. So I think they're actually going to do portrait pictures at work here, so I might go and get that done, even though I haven't. That means, so now that I'm thinking about it, I think they might be doing portraits here, which means today I should really get a haircut. So that's how we use, by looking ahead, how to figure out what's really important. So I need to get a haircut today, and then I need to figure out where to go. because it's all one thing, I just put it in one line, so I don't worry about that too much. I'm not going to nest that event. If anything, you know, every once in a while, if I only have one sub-task to a task, I will not nest it. I'll just go ahead and then write it next to it, but I have to put a little dot so that I know it's another bullet that needs to have an action related to it. So I'm going ahead, going again, putting this down, making sure that I'm not, all right, again, I go ahead and I'm going to put this out. So I already know, because I have this event on Thursday, I like to be prepared. I don't want to wait till the morning of to get something done. So on Thursday, I actually need to print out the paperwork that I need. So I'm going to go to Thursday, and then I'm going to say print audit sheets for rounds. And then that way I am prepared. I just went ahead, I found some more events that I needed to do. I assigned the tasks to the days that are required. And then what I wound up doing, and just so you know, that's the reason why, and maybe it's just because of the type of work that I do. I like having a day per page rather than doing the bullet journal style where you kind of have a, you know, you just keep on going, and then at the end of the day, you just start a next section. So you could have one day on a page, you could have 2 to 3 days on a page, or you can have 2 spreads, like a whole spread for a day. This is working out really well. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And then again, I see that I need to bring some food for this event, and so that means what I'm going to do is I need to actually pick up everything, and because of the place that I'm going to go is totally crazy, I'm going to get there at 6:30, otherwise it will be impossible to get to work on time. So, and I know I need to drive for this day, so I'm going to go ahead, and then once I know that I have to pick up the items, I need to then order the items on the day before. And so that means Friday. And because if I don't order, I'm not going to be able to have the food. I mean, it's not a make or break type of thing, because I could just pick up stuff from somewhere else, but I wouldn't like to do it. So what I'm going to do is put this here and then put in the order. I will go ahead and then one of the things is I want to make sure, ask or tell the other person that I'm going to kind of be there with, is to let them know, because then maybe they don't have to bring anything and I can just focus on that, and that'll save them some time. And because it is a really big one, I'm going to do an A1 plus a little priority sign, because that really has to be done. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the color coding. You've seen that before, so I will just show you at the end what it looks like. I'm not too worried about mixing up the blue and a green, because they're so similar that these guys really are just slightly different. And so if you really need to do some color coding, I'd suggest that you use not only one of these, because otherwise you won't be able to tell what's what. Is something that is listed here. So what I'm going to do is rounds inpatient. So there are a lot of things that I need to get ready for that next week, and that actually starts on Saturday. So I'm going to have some dedicated time for this one. So I will at least, I think actually, because it's pretty important, is, you know, do some brainstorming here. So I'm going to brainstorm. Normally if I'm brainstorming, it also means I need to put together some, you know, presentations. And then there was one other thing, super care day. And then this means that I need to verify who is going to be here. So the person who's in charge of that isn't here till Tuesday. So I will put on there Tuesday. And then that way we're all set. So I have my peep and view. So I've done this week. I've done a quick glance of next week to make sure that I'm not going to be surprised by a big project that needs a lot of work. after this, a review of my goals, and then based on my goals, I'm going to fill in some of this other block time before, which I guess isn't a lot of time, but even an hour here, hour here. If I want a project to move forward, I can go ahead and add some time, and then depending on what activities are here, I can even add a little bit at the end of the day. If it's not truly time sensitive, I'm not going to add it here unless I'm truly going to block out the time and make sure that I stick to that calendar event. Otherwise, this is just what has to be done at a particular time. If it is a task that I can fit in anywhere, I will go ahead and then keep it on my daily page. I will follow up with color coding, with all my different color code stuff, and then I will also follow up with how I do my goals. And I'm reading the bullet journal, and I did a little bit of kind of the exercises that he has, so I think that that's going to be really helpful. I think it made things a little bit clearer for me, and I will see you in that video.